After the toll road fiasco, I assumed the HOA might finally comprehend the futility of attempting to meddle on my property. I was wrong. Karen, never one to admit error or accept limits, decided to escalate in an even more audacious and reckless fashion. This time, the conflict moved from passive-aggressive overreach to outright theft and destruction. Her son stole my Lamborghini from the garage, joyriding it recklessly through the ranch. I first discovered the incident early one morning when Ranger, unusually agitated, refused to enter the garage. I opened the door to find it empty. My Lamborghini, the centerpiece of my collection, gone. A quick scan of the surrounding area revealed tire tracks, skid marks, and the unmistakable imprint of overconfident, inexperienced driving. I immediately contacted the local authorities, describing the stolen vehicle and providing license plate information, vehicle identification numbers, and surveillance footage from the garage cameras. Within minutes, it became clear. The perpetrator was none other than Karen's son. The HOA's reckless pattern had now escalated to criminal activity, and it was time to address it decisively. While the authorities were en route, I reviewed the security footage. Karen's son had entered the garage at night, bypassing alarms and cameras with surprising audacity. He had driven at high speeds across fields, narrowly missing livestock and fences, before ultimately losing control and crashing the car into a creek near the edge of the property. The Lamborghini was damaged, waterlogged, and partially submerged. Ranger barked furiously, circling the wreck, as though expressing his own indignation at the audacity of the theft. Karen, predictably, arrived shortly after, attempting to spin the situation. "It was just a prank," she insisted, gesturing wildly. "He didn't mean any harm. It's your fault for leaving it accessible." Her attempts to deflect responsibility were laughably transparent. I remained calm, allowing the documentation of the incident to speak for itself. I summoned the local sheriff and presented my evidence. Garage security footage, tire tracks, the location of the crashed vehicle, and witness statements from ranch staff who had observed the reckless driving. The sheriff's expression darkened as he processed the severity of the situation. This wasn't a simple prank. It was theft, property damage, and reckless endangerment. Karen's son, now thoroughly panicked, attempted to explain himself. "I didn't know it would crash," he exclaimed. "I just wanted to drive it." The explanation did little to mitigate the consequences. Under law, unauthorized use of property, destruction of vehicles, and trespassing carried significant penalties. I calmly documented every statement and filed formal claims for damages, making it clear that restitution and legal consequences were non-negotiable. I then turned my attention to the HOA. The pattern was undeniable. Repeated attempts to assert authority over my property had escalated from minor annoyances to criminal activity. Every act, from explosive gates, mailbox attacks, lake interference, unauthorized rentals, and road construction, had set the stage for this moment. The HOA had failed to recognize limits, and now they faced tangible consequences. Using the incident as leverage, I demanded full restitution for the Lamborghini, legal acknowledgement of trespassing, and a formal apology from both Karen and her son. Additionally, I informed them that any further unauthorized activity on the ranch would result in immediate police intervention, civil suits, and financial penalties. The HOA board, once again, was left scrambling, realizing that their actions had led to liability, public embarrassment, and legal exposure. Over the following days, the Lamborghini was retrieved, assessed by mechanics, and restored as much as possible. The repair costs, insurance claims, and associated fines were meticulously documented, ensuring the HOA understood the financial impact of their recklessness. Karen's attempts to minimize the situation only further underscored her irresponsibility and lack of credibility. Reflecting on the incident, I realized it exemplified a larger truth. The HOA's arrogance and disregard for ownership had escalated predictably, creating both legal exposure and personal accountability. Every previous incident had been a warning, each act of overreach a demonstration of their misunderstanding of property rights. The theft and destruction of the Lamborghini was merely the latest, and perhaps most dramatic manifestation of that pattern. Standing on the porch that evening, overlooking the ranch, I noted the calm of the valley. Ranger lay at my feet, watching the sun dip below the hills, a silent guardian of both property and authority. The ranch, its assets, and the sequence of strategic enforcement had proven an undeniable truth. Audacity without ownership, action without consequence, and recklessness without oversight inevitably lead to disaster. Karen and her son had learned this lesson the hard way. The HOA, too, was reminded that property rights, strategic planning, and legal enforcement were not optional, they were absolute. On my ranch, authority was clear, consequences were inevitable, and no act of arrogance, theft, or destruction could escape the consequences of ownership, preparation, and strategic foresight. By the end of the week, the Lamborghini was restored, security measures reinforced, and the HOA had been formally warned. Any further attempt to assert control, interfere with property, or engage in reckless actions would result in immediate legal and financial repercussions. Ranger barked once at the sunset, a quiet affirmation that the ranch, its assets, and its authority remained untouchable. The incident would be remembered not as a mere theft, but as a pivotal lesson. On my ranch, overreach is met with strategy, preparation, and consequences that are inescapable. And Karen, and anyone foolish enough to follow her example, would remember it for the rest of their lives.